Okay, picking up where we left off on page 359, we're talking about network attached storage. NAS, one of the cool things about NAS is the suckers are dirt cheap. Okay, here's just a particular brand that I'm somewhat familiar with. So here is a machine that has 12 terabytes of data. Okay, it's got a spot for 6 disks on the inside, and it's $1,400. Okay, now that's like $110 a terabyte. That is dirt cheap. And this guy, it's got all sorts of processing power. It's got all sorts of cool features. And I'm not going to get into all the details. But what it basically is a box that you plug your hard drives into, and behind the scenes it's using RAID, but that's not really relevant to this conversation in reality. And then it has a network cord that plugs into just your home network or your office network. And this just shows up as, server 1. And so if you were browsing through the network, you just go to server 1, and there's all the shares where you set them up, and you set up permissions the way you would like a Windows server, and you copy files back and forth. So everyone can store a bunch of data. Now these things are actually pretty good for, this is not enterprise model. This is a kind of a small home office kind of model. And they're good for about, 20 or 30 users, okay? So you wouldn't want to put 200 people on one of these guys. They do have bigger ones that do that, but that's not what this does. Okay. And there's another type, and the other type is called a storage area network, a SAN. It's the same acronym but backwards. One is a NAS, the other is a SAN. Jeez. Okay, now SANs are a little bit more complex. They may physically look like this little guy, but behind the scenes they are radically different. Instead of plugging into just like the network, they usually have like a specialized, like an optical cable or something coming out of it, or fiber channel cord coming out of it. Now, you can get a SAN that uses a gigabit Ethernet. Okay, you can do that. But typically what you would want to do is you'd want to separate that traffic from the rest of your network. In other words, it would just be like a point-to-point. You'd have like a server and a SAN, and you'd have just a network cable running between the two that wasn't shared by. So that means your server is going to have 2 network cards, one for pointing out to the rest of the corporate LAN, and then one dedicated solely for storage. Okay, so that works pretty cool. Anyway, so there's a little diagram there that talks about the storage area network. May have tape drives. It may have, hard drives. It may have CD-ROM, stack and things of that nature. And so they're hardwired into a server. Now what that means is if I'm sitting on a LAN, I can't talk directly to a SAN. If all I have is a PC, my PC has to talk to a real honest-to-God physical server that has a SAN attached. So I actually kind of third party. I can't talk to it directly. I have to go around to the server, and the server talks to the SAN. Okay? So you see the distinction? NAS is any PC on the LAN can talk to it directly, and SAN is every PC must go through a server somewhere where that SAN is physically attached. Okay. Let's keep going. Page 360, talk about tape drives. Yeah, tape drives are hardly used that much. Let me tell you what happened. So yeah, we had these really cool tape drives, and they were fantastic. And we were buying these cartridges. They were 160 gig tape cartridges, and the price for 160 gig tape cartridge stayed about the same. It was about $1 a gig. So 160 gig tape would cost $160, okay? And it stayed that way forever, okay? But the price of the hard drives kept falling and falling and falling and falling and falling and falling until you got to the point where $160 could buy you 500 meg or a terabyte of storage. So disk drives became incredibly cheap. So in the combination, instead of having removable media tape, you use one of these little docking stations, and you have removable media hard drives to do your backup. So a lot of people are kind of moving away from tape. The only people that are really using tape now are where you have no choice. I mean, you need huge amounts of storage that couldn't possibly fit on a single disk. And you can have these what's called a robot library, where they have rows and rows of disks, and the little robot arm comes out, goes and grabs a tape and goes and sticks it into the tape drive, and then when it's done, it pulls it out and sticks it into the next one. I mean, that's pretty cool. You can't do that with removable hard drives. So if once you exceed the capacity of a removable hard drive, then tape drives are pretty cool. Okay, so tape drives are not incredibly fast. They're kind of expensive. They're kind of cantankerous. We had one of those little robot. We had two of those little robot things, robot tape libraries, and they always drove us nuts. Once again, things with moving parts are the things that are probably going to fail. Okay, and tape drive prices have not kept up at all. I mean, the tape drive itself was like $5,000, and you'd spend $200 per tape. I'm going, my little hub here cost me $40, and I can buy a terabyte hard drive for under 100. So show me again how this is cost effective. Yeah. Okay. So on page 361, they kind of changed the subject, talking about other types of storage, and the magnetic stripe cards. You know how it is. You go to the store with your debit card, your credit card, and so that's a type of storage, right? It's not much. It's a little magnetic type stripe of magnetic material. It's the same material that's inside your hard drive. The spinning platter, same stuff, except some spinning around, you're just moving it with your own hand. Smart cards have a chip, and the chip is very similar to the storage chips we were talking about that were like in your camera, the micro SD cards. Same kind of, they're physically small because it has to fit in the thickness of one of those little credit cards. I mean, that sucker is tiny. Okay, so smart cards. RFID tags on page after that, on page 363, and I mentioned to you there's two different types of RFID tags. There's a passive one; those are dirt cheap. You can throw those away, kind of thing. Those are the ones you use for putting on products in a retail environment. So if they walk out the door, it sends off the alarm because they're so cheap they can take them home and throw them away, right? Then they have active versions, which have a little battery in them. And you can interrogate them, send them a little note, or they can be timed so that every day they wake up and transmit where their current location is, things of that nature. So RFID tags are kind of cool. Read that little section. They talk about other types of storage on page 363, but quite frankly, this is not digital storage at all. They're talking about using microfilm and microfiche readers. I'm not exactly sure why that's in the book, since we're supposed to be talking about computer storage, I thought. But yeah, those things still exist. We had a service like this, and we hired a company to take our microfiche, our microfilm, and digitize it and give us back, PDFs. Actually, they were TIFF files, but that's not the point. Anyway, they gave us back these scanned images, and then we put them all in a library. So you walk up to a web, you type in whatever it is that you wanted, it would search the library and pull that file out, pop it up on the screen, and you could download or do it, whatever you wanted to do. So we kind of got out of the film-based systems. Okay, we have reached the end. Page 365 is the summary. Let's just go through really quickly. A variety of storage options, yep. Storage capacity and storage access time, yep. Characteristics of a hard drive, RAID and external hard drives, yep. Various types of flash memory storage. Advantages of various uses of cloud storage. I didn't really go into the advantages because we've been talking about cloud since day one. But cloud storage, of course, you just pay by the storage. So however much you need is how much you pay. It's no big deal. Characteristics of optical disks, yep. And enterprise storage options. Okay, so we have reached the end of the chapter. I guess we'll see you guys again in some future chapter.